The hardest part of moving to a new city is not always leaving your old home. Sometimes, it is sitting in a familiar room and realizing that soon, everything around you will become a memory. That was exactly how Tara felt. At 29, she had decided to leave the city she had known for years and start again somewhere new. The decision had not been easy. She had thought about it for months, wondering if she was making the right choice. That evening, she knelt beside an open moving box and carefully packed her clothes. Every item seemed ordinary, yet touching them made her remember where she had been and how much life had happened around them. After packing for a while, Tara sat on her sofa and picked up an old photograph. She stared at it quietly, remembering the people, places, and simple moments she was leaving behind. Then her phone caught her attention. She checked the information about her new apartment and the expenses she still had to handle. Suddenly, the excitement she had felt earlier disappeared. There was rent to think about. There were bills, transportation, food, and the uncertainty of starting somewhere she barely knew. That night, Tara sat at her coffee table and wrote down her expenses. As she looked at the numbers, she realized something important. Moving to a new city would require more than courage. It would require planning. Later, she stood beside her bedroom window and looked outside. The familiar streets below reminded her of everything she was about to leave. She felt afraid. What if things did not work out? What if she struggled to make friends? What if she regretted leaving? Tara did not have answers to those questions. But the next morning, she decided that she did not need to know everything before taking the first step. She sat on her bed and wrote down a simple plan. Instead of thinking about the entire future, she would focus on what she could do that day. So she started packing properly, one box at a time. She organized her documents, checked her budget, and removed things she no longer needed. The work was tiring, but something inside her slowly became calmer. A few days later, her suitcase was ready. Tara stood beside it near the front door and took a deep breath. She was still nervous, but underneath the fear was something else: hope. During the journey, Tara sat beside the bus window and watched the familiar streets disappear. New buildings and unfamiliar roads appeared outside. For the first time, she understood that she was truly beginning again. When she reached her new apartment, she carried one of her boxes inside. The apartment was clean, but it felt strange. The rooms were quiet, the walls were unfamiliar, and the boxes made everything feel temporary. Tara stood there for a moment, wondering whether she had made a mistake. Then she sat down with a mug in her hands. She reminded herself that a new home does not become a home immediately. It takes time. The next morning, she made a small plan. She started arranging her belongings instead of worrying about everything she had not done. She placed one of her photographs on a shelf. Then she found a good place for her plant. Little by little, the apartment began to feel different. Not completely familiar, but more like hers. A few days later, Tara sat at her dining table and ate breakfast alone. It was a very ordinary moment. Yet she noticed something. She was beginning to create a routine. And routines, she realized, could make unfamiliar places feel safe. She eventually stepped outside and walked through her new neighborhood. She noticed the trees, the shops, the buildings, and the people going about their normal lives. At a small grocery shop, she bought a few things she needed. She even exchanged a friendly smile with someone outside the shop. It was a tiny interaction, but it reminded Tara that making a new place feel like home could happen through small moments. That evening, she sat on her sofa and looked at her phone with a gentle smile. She realized that she had been waiting for the new city to make her feel comfortable, but perhaps she needed to participate in creating that comfort herself. Over the following days, Tara continued building her routine. She kept track of her spending, she explored her surroundings, she organized her home. She slowly became familiar with the streets, and she stopped expecting herself to adjust overnight. One morning, she watered her plant and looked around her apartment. There were no longer boxes everywhere. The rooms looked organized. The place felt peaceful. And for the first time, Tara smiled without forcing it. She finally understood that starting over does not mean starting from nothing. You carry your experiences, your lessons, and your strength with you. Moving to a new city had not removed all of Tara's problems. It had simply taught her that uncertainty does not always mean danger. Sometimes, it means there is room for something new. That evening, Tara sat quietly on her sofa with a warm mug in her hands. She looked around the room and realized that the place she had once called unfamiliar was slowly becoming home. She had learned that courage does not always feel like confidence. Sometimes, courage is simply being afraid and taking the next step anyway. If you are starting over somewhere new, do not pressure yourself to have everything figured out immediately. Give yourself time. Build slowly. Create small routines. Meet people when you are ready. And remember that feeling uncomfortable at the beginning does not mean you made the wrong decision. Sometimes, a new chapter feels frightening simply because you have never read it before. And sometimes, the life you are afraid to begin becomes the life you are most grateful you started. Thank you for watching Orivelle Diaries TV. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more amazing stories every day.